for our asynchronous learning. So I think these are the minor groups and major groups. As you can see from the DNA. So again, the definition of your minor group and major group, they are empty spaces. So if viewed from the side, that would be a somewhat flat in a staircase. So in between those flats, there is an empty space. So the smaller one, we call it the major group. The bigger ones, we call it the minor group for the smaller one. The major ones, I mean the bigger one, is called the bigger group. Okay. So of course, then we go back to our discussions. Then you have next actually is there possible conformations. Are there other possible conformations of the double helix? So the answer is yes, there is actually. So it starts, the book starts about discussing what are the conformations of a double helix. We have actually, in terms of conformations, we have actually three types: the bDNA, the aDNA, the cDNA. So the bDNA is common, the most common form of the DNA double helix common form. So talking about the form, that is beta, no, not beta, but B, A, and C. So what are, I mean, how do they look like? Of course, next one, next pages. aDNA, a form of DNA double helix characterized by having fewer residues. So fewer residues meaning if you chug down the nucleotide or the nucleic acid, if you chug it down, meaning you broke it, the aDNA has a fewer residues, meaning it is more loose than the bDNA is more compact because it has more, not really on the compactness but on the number of residues. Again, residues are a term for um, the part, uh, the if you from a big part you reduce them to smaller part, we call them residues. But from a smaller part going to the big part, those small part we call them usually building blocks. Okay, and then similar, because usually residues, we use the term residues when we try to analyze them, meaning when we try to separate them in their pure context, meaning it's a analytical process to analyze the the components of that DNA. So there's cell denaturation, then you chug it down, so that you can really identify parts of those. And though that is the part wherein we see those terms residues. While for building blocks, of course, if we try to tell them in how are they made up, so we just call them building blocks. The nucleotides, the mono units, or probably you can say mono units, but that's not really mono because there's a lot of carbon too. But anyway, beta DNA, aDNA, and cDNA. cDNA is not real common, but they do exist. A form of DNA that is left-handed. So the difference is between the right-handed and the left-handed. Because if you will arrange that in that, let's say the 5' and the 3' perspective, they have seen that bDNA and aDNA are somewhat right-handed, meaning they follow your right hand. Maybe you can see the next photos, which is and also I've highlighted the aDNA, which is 11 pairs for each turn of the helix. So I think for the bDNA, the common one, it has 10. So aDNA, it has 11 for each turn of the helix. And then you have also angles here. You just read. An important shared feature of aDNA and bDNA is that both are right-handed helices. So they both follow your right hand. While cDNA is don't follow right hand, but of course there are only two. It follows the left hand. Even our isomerisms, our R and S isomerisms, there are only two. Of course, in terms of handedness, it's either the right or the left. The right, if the molecule follows your right hand rotation, we call them R, and so on and so forth. So this is B, I think this is B, A, and C. So this is your Z. As you can see, both of each rotates by the right. You can see your right hand, and then this is the rotation. So that is a right hand rule. You have your right going pointing up, and then this is the rotation now. See, that is the rotation on this side of the molecule. Okay, and this one is also a right-handed DNA, and this one is a left-handed. You have your left thumb going up, and then your rotation is going to this part. Okay, so that is a left-handed DNA. That is a cDNA. In terms of form, so comparisons of the A, B, and Z forms of DNA. The A form, the base pairs have marked propeller twist with respect to the helix axis. In the B form, the base pairs lie in plane that is close. So the angle between A and B is somewhat different. The fact that they have different number of one turn. So it also shows that the angle between them is not the same. Okay? So that's how they can understand more by counting of those angles. So if you have your trigonometry, I think you can picture out. But anyway, if you cannot, just look at it. The B form, the base pairs lie in plane that is close to perpendicular to the helix axis. cDNA is a left-handed helix. Okay, the B form, base pairs, and so on and so forth. The Z form DNA can be considered a derivative of B form. So as I've read actually, because I told you I'm just reading. So if you can read actually your book, no need of looking at these videos actually. Or maybe you have some for support. Look at the video and then skip. As long as there are things you can get from these videos, and then you really have to read, and that's a good a good attitude. Reading on the authors because they are the one who have really mastered these things. I'm only reading also. I'm not in the position to tell you that I also know these things. I just know because of reading these things. I'm not a master of these things. Okay? So I'm not assuming anything. The C form DNA can be considered a derivative of the B form, meaning maybe you can do. I think next reading here actually there's a part that we call of course when you try to analyze DNA, you have to do something with it, and about that doing, maybe you can transform B into a Z type because the Z form DNA can be considered a derivative, meaning it comes from the B form of DNA. Maybe it's supercoiled and then it twists back to the different rule, the left hand rule. Maybe because if you twist it into a ladder form, maybe there's tendency for it really to twist in the another side. So that's what it says here. It is a derivative from the Z form. I'm just paraphrasing actually. The DNA produced by flipping one side of the backbone 180 without having to break either. So, so I think, so that's what actually I mentioned, having that staircase alone, without flipping, produced by flipping one side of the backbone without having to break, so without breaking. Because if you break it, that's already not a DNA, but an RNA actually, if you break the hydrogen bond, because the most loose part, I mean, about bonding is of course the hydrogen bond compared to the covalent bonding between phosphate, nitrogenous bases, and your sugar. That is covalent bond. We call them glycosidic bond for your sugar and your phosphate bond. Anyway, but those are covalent bonds, meaning an electron being shared. While if you talk about hydrogen bond, there is no electrons being shared. So they're the most loose. That's why it says here without breaking those backbone hydrogen bonding. Okay. The B form DNA is long considered the normal physiological DNA form. So the normal, so meaning the Z form is actually a B. You're getting there, but it's not normal or abnormal. So I have also highlighted base stacking interaction between bases that are next to each other in a DNA chain. The ring portions of DNA then, the meaning of base stacking. So you have another term there. Base stacking is the interaction between bases that are next to each other in the DNA chain. So there's still interactions between them. They can move or probably have electromagnetic interactions because you have positive negative side from one molecule, another molecule, there's an interaction between them. We call them base stacking. Okay? See, there's that word hydrophobic because there's interaction. Hydrophobic is interaction between, um, it hates water. That's why it interacts. If there's water, it goes, it wants to goes away from that presence of water. So we call that hydrophobic. And interact with each other via hydrophobic bonds, meaning it doesn't involve water because that hydrophobic bonds are usually made of carbon and hydrogen. Okay, we call it van der Waals interactions of their pi cloud electrons. So that word pi cloud is talking about the electrons in a double bond. So going back to organic chemistry, that pi cloud electrons are it talks about on the orbitals, the p orbitals. Being carbon, there is a p orbital with carbon because it has 4 valence electrons, and some of those electrons exist in the p orbital. P orbital. I think there are two. So there are 4 valence electrons for carbon, 2 of which exist in the p orbital. So one is in the px, one is in the py. So usually on the py, if you have a double bond, because again, even those on the what do you call this, on the s orbital, it can hybridize. So I can, the fact that I can say these things because that's a solid chemistry. Okay, so that's where that word comes from. That pi interactions, that pi clouds interaction, meaning that is the electrons that is associated with the double bond. The second bond, which is usually the py, the overlapping on the side by side of your carbon to carbon double bond, or probably your nitrogen and carbon. So from the molecular orbital theory. Okay, then so that things you can read there. Just read. Anyway, I don't have to really spoon feed you guys, but just give you directions on what are the books or what are the authors are telling us. And then you have now the supercoils. Anyway, many DNA binding proteins recognize the overall structures of a sequence of DNA. See, even proteins recognize the structure of a sequence of DNA, which depends upon the sequence, but is not the DNA sequence itself. Which depends upon the sequence, but is not the DNA sequence itself. Not on the DNA sequence, but on the sequence of sequencing on the DNA. That binding of proteins. Okay? So we know that binding of proteins create a lot of stuff. It makes a lot of metabolism in our bodies. Meaning metabolism is a chemical reaction that produces probably another proteins, probably compounds, organic compounds within our bodies or within cells of the animal kingdom, and so on and so forth, because it talks about DNA. Okay, so that's what it says. And then you have those terms supercoils, and then for supercoils you have a negative supercoil and a positive supercoil. Supercoils, that is an extra twist over and above those of a double helix in closed circular DNA. When we consider a DNA in a and again, there's the lowest energy. The lowest energy meaning it is stable, because if you have no stress, it will resort on that state. We call that the lowest energy. We call that the twist of that DNA. But if you have an extra twist with with it, meaning there is a stress behind more coil than the original coil, a stable coil. So we call it a supercoil. So again, it's already long. I mean, I